All right, welcome everyone to today's Explainer. We are about to seriously level up your coding skills and crush your core Python units. We're going to take our code and transform it from just, simple calculators into dynamic, thinking programs. We're diving deep into the absolute core concepts today, the stuff that gives our Python programs a brain to make choices, the stamina to work tirelessly, and a memory to organize all of our information. Let's get right into it. So before we start typing away, think about this for a second. How exactly do programs make logical decisions? Think about the algorithm on your favorite social media feed, or how your favorite video game knows exactly when your character takes damage. How do they know what to do next? Well, at its core, coding is really just the process of teaching a computer how to choose the right path based on what's happening around it. In the tool we're going to use to build these paths today, it's Python. Python is incredibly popular, especially when you're just starting out, because its simple syntax makes it absolutely perfect for giving computers these smart instructions. You get to build real logic without getting completely bogged down in confusing jargon. Okay, so here's our roadmap for this explainer. First up, making decisions with conditionals. Second, loops, working smarter, not harder. Third, functions, which are like your own small machines. And finally, organizing data with structures. Let's kick things off with Section 1, making decisions with conditionals. Okay, a conditional statement. Sounds fancy, right? But it's literally just a programming structure that lets your code choose between multiple paths of execution depending on specific conditions. Imagine a website checking your age before it lets you create an account. This is exactly how a program decides if a user is old enough to enter a site or what rank a player gets based on their competitive match score. In Python, we basically have three main paths of logic here. The if statement means the code executes only if the condition is true. Then there's if-else, which gives us a fork in the road. It executes one block of code if true or an alternative block if false. And finally, if-else-else. This one lets us test multiple different conditions in sequence. It's kind of like asking, did the player finish in first place? No. Okay, did they finish in the top 5? No. Well, they get a participation trophy. Now pay attention here, because Python is super strict about its syntax. You absolutely must end your condition with a colon. And secondly, you have to ensure all the code inside the block uses indentation. You know, that little space before the text? If you forget the colon or you forget to indent, your code simply breaks. No way around it. Python completely relies on that visual structure to understand your logic. Moving right along to Section 2, loops, working smarter. Look, why write the exact same command 100 times when the computer can just do the heavy lifting for you? We have two main tools for this stamina. The for loop is great for when you know the exact count up front. Like if you want to spawn exactly 5 enemies in a game, you'd use range 5. The while loop, on the other hand, is for conditional repetition. It just runs continuously as long as a specific condition remains true. So that makes it absolutely perfect for something like waiting for a player to click a start button. But you gotta watch out for the dreaded infinite loop. This is a classic programmer trap, honestly. When you're using a while loop, you must always make sure to change the condition inside the loop itself. For example, adding 1 to your variable every time it runs. If you don't do that, the condition never becomes false, and your loop will just spin faster and faster until it completely freezes your screen and crashes your entire program. Not fun. All right, jumping into Section 3, functions, your small machines. I want you to think of a function as your own custom-built mini machine that performs a specific task only when you ask it to. You build it in Python using the def keyword, which just stands for define. You build this little machine, you give it inputs to work with, which by the way we call parameters in the coding world, and then it just sits there and waits patiently. It's not going to do anything until you specifically call its name in your code. Now, here's a spot where a lot of people get stuck. What's the difference between print and return? Well, print simply displays the result on the screen so we can look at it. Return, however, is a real game changer. It actually sends the result back into the program so it can be saved in a variable and used later on. It's the difference between just looking at a player's new health score after a battle versus actually saving that new score for the next round. Okay, so we've got a brain, we've got stamina, and we've got our custom machines. But how do we actually store and organize all the massive amounts of information these programs handle behind the scenes? Which brings us to our final part, Section 4, organizing data with structures. Simply put, data structures are exactly what they sound like, ways to store data in your program in an organized way. Whether you're keeping track of a list of usernames, saving high scores, or holding on to user settings, Python has different types of digital filing cabinets, depending on exactly what kind of data we're dealing with. So Python gives us three main filing cabinets to use. First is the list, which uses square brackets. It's mutable, meaning you can change it, kind of like a shopping list you keep adding to. Next is the tuple. That one uses parentheses. It's immutable, meaning fixed. Think of it like your school timetable. You really don't want that changing randomly. Finally, we have the dictionary, which uses curly braces. It holds key value pairs, acting exactly like a glossary, where you look up a word to instantly find its definition. Because lists are mutable, meaning they can change, we have special commands to manage them. We can use .append to add a new item to the very end, .remove to delete a specific item, and .sort to easily organize all the items in ascending order. Since you can change them on the fly, lists are perfect for data that is constantly updating, like the items sitting right now in a player's digital inventory. On the flip side, we have tuples, and you might be sitting there wondering, why on earth would I want a list that I can't change? Well, we use tuples for fixed data, things like days of the week or the actual map coordinates for a game world. By making this data immutable, we protect it. It ensures that your important fixed information isn't accidentally changed or deleted by some random glitch in your program. Finally, we have the dictionary. Dictionaries use unique keys to instantly find specific values. They are absolutely perfect for things like student records or player profiles. Instead of scrolling through a massive, endless list, you just use a student's username, which is the key, to instantly pull up their specific grade, level, or rank, the value. It makes managing complex data incredibly fast and super efficient. And there you have it, the whole shebang. We've explored conditionals for decision-making logic, loops for incredible stamina, functions for custom, repeatable tools, and data structures to keep a perfect memory. These four concepts are quite literally the foundational building blocks of the software running our entire world today. So armed with this knowledge, I want to leave you with one final question. Now that you have the building blocks, what amazing app or game are you going to build next?